Hey everyone, welcome to Princess of Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with Heathers. This is a donation reward for Venom. And this is a movie that I have been waiting for someone to specifically donate for. Because it's a movie I've wanted to see for quite a long time. It is a movie that I wanted to react to, but there I don't usually get the chance to react to something that's just my choice. The only time I do that is if it's something I really want to get to. Like One Piece Film Red earlier this week was something that was like, oh yeah, I was always going to react to that because One Piece is my favorite piece of media. Um, and then like even with like Everything Everywhere All at Once and The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, those were done during a special week, and I decided to do that special movie week specifically to get to those because those were movies I really wanted to get to. So it's like this is a movie I've wanted to do, but it hasn't been to the level of like those other movies. So that's why I just never did it on my own. So I was specifically waiting for someone to request it, and finally someone has. So I'm getting to it. Um, and the reason I've been waiting is because of a single song from the Heathers musical. I'm not fucking with you here. The Heathers stage musical has a single song that I've heard called Candy Store that is really damn good. Like, really damn good. And it has made me want to see the movie. Like the original 80s movie that the musical was based on. Obviously, I know that this is not a musical. I know that the songs were made for the stage play, that won't be carried over into the original movie, or they didn't come from the original movie. Um, but nonetheless, I'm still excited to see what this movie has in store. So there are a couple things I do know going into this. I know that it centers around this one girl who is bullied by three girls known as the Heathers because all of their first name is Heather. Um, I believe the main one who wears red in the stage play. I don't know if the color scheme thing is in this originally, but I know I believe her name is Heather Chandler. I might be wrong about that. I don't remember the last names of the other two. Um, I know that it is a revenge story against the Heathers. And I know that two of the actors in this are Winona Ryder, famous for things such as Beetlejuice and more recently Stranger Things, as well as Christian Slater, of all actors. He's been in various things here and there. I think he was in Mr. Robot. I think he is Mr. Robot. I think he's the titular character. Um, so that's interesting. Um, Obviously, this is when they were both younger, but still. I don't know who else is in this offhand. Um, but yeah, I'm very interested to see this. I've seen even people at conventions dress as the Heathers characters, specifically the Heathers themselves. So it's like I really kind of want to see if the color thing is in this originally, and I want to see like where this is, how far the revenge tale is taken with this. Um, because you kind of get a vibe from the song, at least how they are in the stage play, the characters. I'm wondering how much of that is going to carry over here. Like, are the character do the characters have the same personalities and all? Like, does the main Heather, again, I think Heather Chandler, the red Heather, is she still a bossy bad bitch who is very full of herself and everything? Is one of the other Heathers kind of ditzy and dumb, and the other one kind of a yes girl kind of thing? Um, is that kind of the vibe we get from them in this? Um, does the other girl, who I think is Winona Ryder's character, does she still have an overweight friend who the Heathers make fun of and try to, you know, lure her away from? And there's Jesus, it is windy out there. I don't know if that's picking up, but if it is, I apologize. Like it is extremely windy out there. Like you can hear it just blowing by. It's like wow. But yeah, it's like I'm wondering like how much like from that song I might be able to recognize in this. I don't know because I don't know how much from the stage play was accurate to the movie. Um, but I'm definitely interested because I've even heard friends talk about this movie and it's kind of one of those movies, kind of in the vein of like Breakfast Club and everything, that is just like it was just one of those movies during that time period that it's like just was kind of on everybody's must watch list. I've heard so many people talk about it. I've seen it on various lists of 80s movies and stuff, so I actually want to see what it's like. Um, and I've heard mostly just purely good things about it, so there's been a couple of naysayers, but almost everything has been positive. Now, I will also say right off the bat, considering bullying is a notable aspect in this movie, and this is a movie from the 80s, I very much expect some things that did not age well. I'm just going to say this right off the bat. I'm expecting there's going to be some things in this movie that didn't age well, possibly some homophobic slurs and whatnot thrown around, things like that, maybe even some casual racism. I can very much believe that. I don't know if this movie has that issue like a lot of older movies do, but I could very much see it happening, and I'm prepared for it. It's going to bother me still, but I'm prepared for if it does happen. Um, Possibly some sexism too, honestly. And yeah, there's just gonna very possibly be some bad stuff, and I know it was a thing of the times, and we have to acknowledge that, but we have to continue to strive to do better as we go along, and a lot of movies have been so. To be fair, but either way, we're just gonna get this started. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades black, then it fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the movie. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, as I mentioned, I had heard the one song from the musical before, and if I'm being kind of honest, it painted my interpretation of at least some of the story, at least some of the context of the story. And I don't know how the stage adaptation portrays all of this in comparison, but I'm gonna put it like this: Heathers has a plot, its plot, its idea, its concept, even just the idea of the story, and even kind of the things that it, in a way, represents. All of that is actually really fucking good. The concept, the plot, the idea, even the way things happen with the characters and all of that is really good and could be an amazing movie or even series to a degree. The problem is the execution. The execution comes down to a few main points. One, the pacing is really fucking slow. like exceptionally slow. I've seen movies from the 80s, the 70s, and even prior to that where the pacing doesn't feel this monotonous and hard to sit through. There's a lot of shit in this that felt needless and felt like it was just padding. Um, but there's also pacing issues with the fact that some of it goes a little too quick. And that comes in and that kind of combines into my second issue. Heather Chandler didn't deserve to die. Like, from the song, the candy store song, my kind of impression of Heather Chandler was that she was going to be this like mega bitch, like this really terrible, disgusting, vile person, and she just wasn't. Like, don't get me wrong, she was a bitch. She was kind of terrible, but nowhere near to the degree that I expected, and nowhere near to the degree to deserve what she got, or even to deserve for others to wish harm upon her. Like, we have this like moment early on where Veronica is like writing in her diary as she does, and she says like I want Heather dead and everything. It's like, why? There's no reason for you to necessarily want that. She hasn't done anything that bad for you to want her dead. Like, I don't get it. I like, again, she's a bitch. She's a terrible person, but not to that degree. It's like she hasn't even done much to her by that point. I think the only thing she did to her by that point was like force her to stay at the party when she wanted to leave, and it's like, oh, and she got sick and threw up, and it's like they had a fight, and it's like, okay. Or that might have even actually been after that. I don't remember. But the point is, Heather didn't do anything to deserve that. Like, again, I've seen Mean Girls, and the characters in that are worse. It's just like, again, maybe it's the expectation because of that song and everything, but I really don't think Heather Chandler was that bad, all things considered. Honestly, Heather Duke seemed worse, if I'm being completely honest here. And then the other one, Heather, God, what is her? I have the Wikipedia up. Let me check real quick. What is her name? The other Heather. It starts with an N. No, it starts with an M. It's McNamara. Um, she was just she was the least bad of the three, and honestly kind of had a redemption arc in the end when she became actually suicidal, and Veronica helped her. It's like she was the best of them by far, but it's like Heather Duke was honestly the worst. Heather Duke was a lot worse. It's just maybe it's because we got to spend more time with Heather Duke that I think that, but it's like, and obviously JD was the worst character in this. He was an absolute psychopath. Um, it's just talking about the Heathers. And the fact that like Heather died like in the first 30 minutes out of a movie that's an hour and 40 minutes long, it's like you needed a lot more time there. What I think they should have done, I think they should have at least had 45 minutes, at least 15 extra minutes, and some of that time should have been more focused on making Heather Chandler seem as unlikable and terrible as possible. Instead, she was just kind of a like very light bitch. I've seen worse people in my everyday life. I've seen worse people on YouTube videos. Like, it's like, I understand that teenagers sometimes take things a little far, and like they can exaggerate how good or bad something is or whatnot. Like that's yeah, that's a thing, but that was a little ridiculous, if I'm being honest. Um, and the third really big issue I had with this is that it just didn't capitalize on the tone and feeling of it. And that could kind of go in line with the pacing issues. A lot of it felt very boring, but a lot of the acting even felt very stiff. Like, even the characters who were supposed to be, like, bad and evil or terrible never really came across like they were actually trying to act that way. Like Heather Chandler, again, she came across as like she's saying some bad things, but the way she's acting, the way she's saying them, just makes her sound bored. Like it doesn't sound like she wants to be there. It doesn't sound like she's putting any actual attempts behind the lines. It's just it doesn't come across as believable. Winona Ryder and Christian Slater were the best actors in this. They were the ones who actually gave, you know, a lot of passion to their performances. Um, but like everyone else, it just like felt off, and it hurt the overall tone of a lot of this when it's supposed to be like really dark and kind of fucked up and really intense at points. It's like, eh. Like a big moment late into the movie when Veronica's mother sees what she thinks is Veronica's corpse hanging there after suicide. Her reaction is so fucking nothing. She's like, I should have let you get that job at the mall or whatever. And she's like, she's barely reacting. She's not crying. She's not in shock. She's not horrified. She's just like, I should have let you get that job at the mall. Wow, boo hoo. My daughter's dead. You can tell how broken up I am about it. It's like there was no emotion in her performance. It boggles my mind how emotionless mostly everyone was in this. I will give it credit for its kills. They are creative. The kills were pretty interesting. The reasons that they made up as the suicide thing were pretty interestingly done. Um, Even if a lot of it there was a lot of homophobia in this, and again, I knew that was going to possibly be the case because of the times and everything. I expected that going in. It's still terrible, but I expected it. But I do like the one moment with the one jock's father, like accepting him after his suicide and saying like my son was gay and I love him and I stand by him, and it's like that's actually really nice. Too bad a lot of parents aren't like that. There are a lot of parents of queer kids who, when they commit suicide, they blame the queer community for it. It's like my kid wouldn't have committed suicide if the queer community hadn't twisted their mind. And it's like, oh my God. But that happens a lot more often than you think, especially for trans people. It's really fucked up. Um, and I feel like I have to talk about as well my thoughts on this from the perspective of someone who has attempted suicide multiple times. Because it wasn't very clear from my reaction the level of discomfort I was feeling, but I was. I feel like I was like maybe cracking jokes at a couple of points surrounding that, or like not really saying much during those scenes, but it's like it was very uncomfortable. Anything I see that involves suicide in media and whatnot makes me uncomfortable. Just because of my connection to it. But I think it is also the fact that I went into this kind of expecting it to be kind of this dark movie like that, because I had already known about that. I think because I expected that, it didn't affect me as hard. It's not like when I played Doki Doki Literature Club and I actually had to go, like, stop playing the game at one point, go away, cry and puke, like, and just like I was in a very bad place at that point, because that time I was not expecting it, because I didn't know the game was like that. I thought, because that's the big turning point of Doki Doki Literature Club. Before that, you think it's just kind of this writing, literature club based dating sim or something. So it's like, it caught me off guard. This, I expected it, so my reaction wouldn't have been as severe. But I feel like I was trying to hold back as well, so I wanted to clarify that, yeah, it was bothering me, and especially seeing some of the, like, the reasons they were listening, especially with the jocks and the entire, um, having to hide being gay thing idea. It's like, because that's a real thing that people have committed suicide over, and it's really fucked up. And as a queer person myself, it it affects me big time, especially because, there's this story going around online recently of a Middle Eastern trans woman who was tricked by people who were supposed to be helping her, because they were hired by her parents to bring her back to her home in the Middle East to try and detransition her and everything. And she ended up committing suicide because of it. Because her parents forced that, and even after her death, they blamed that kind of ideology and stuff and took no fault for it at all. It's a very it's still fresh in my heart and hurts badly. I didn't know who this girl was. I never followed her on social media, but it was a pretty big deal, when it happened, and people were like, because she posted her suicide note on Twitter, and it's like the queer community online had been talking about it, and so it's very fresh still, and because of that, it's like, yeah, it's very uncomfortable, that specific suicide in this movie, but all of them really still. Or again, faked suicide, but still. Um, yeah, it's just, I don't know how the stage adaptation does or whatnot, but this is one of those movies that I feel could use a remake, um, done more in this filming style and directorial style of movies like today. Because I feel like this, again, the concept and idea works. The execution was bad. I feel like it could have been handled so much better. And again, at least Christian Slater and Winona Ryder were fantastic in it. Like, they did a great job, but I kind of always expect them to do a great job. They're two very talented actors. Um, I just, I feel like there could be better. You know what I mean? Maybe the stage adaptation's better. I don't know. Because again, I've only heard like the one song. Maybe I've heard a second song, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. I just know that one for sure. But yeah, it's like, it's kind of disappointing, because I again, I had this kind of thought in my head on this movie, and obviously it didn't live up to my expectations. But again, I see so much potential in the idea behind this. And even as dark and twisted as it is, and it's obviously meant to be, um, that can actually be a good movie. You can have movies that are dark and twisted and still work. This didn't, just because of, again, the way it was written, directed, paced. It didn't quite work. And it sucks. Again, It sucks because of the potential here. But that's going to happen. I was super excited to see this movie. I was like, I've been wanting someone to donate for it, and it didn't live up to my hopes. That can happen. I'm not going to say I was in the wrong for wanting to see it. And hell, I'm glad I have seen it now. It's just, I just don't feel like it worked as well as it could have. It just wasn't executed well, despite its great concept and idea. And again, it could have taught so much more and worked with its lesson and morals better, but yeah. I would love to hear your thoughts, though. Tell me in the comments below, what did you think of Heathers? And for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.